everyone. Welcome back to the Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy. I am a certified birth doula and a prenatal coach, and we believe in empowering women through storytelling and education. And I'm so excited that you guys are here. If you didn't catch last week's podcast, it was with the Minimalist Mama, and it was something that I really needed to hear. I now want to cleanse through my entire house and life and everything. It was really good to talk to her. I feel like it's really easy for me to hold on to clutter in my brain and environment. So those two things are correlated. And I definitely know that I have some deep spring cleaning to do in my house. I just need to get rid of a bunch of stuff, which I already got rid of a lot. But it's not enough. My goal is to be able to fit in my closet all seasons of clothes. Because once I moved to Chicago, I'm like, oh, I need clothes for every single season. And I would bring out winter clothes and then pack them away, and bring out summer clothes and pack them away. So my goal is to be able to just fit everything in my closet. No packing stuff away. I do have a maternity tub that is packed away, and I think that is okay. But yeah, I just want to be able to fit everything in my closet, have it organized. It is so much easier to figure out what you're going to wear that day when you know that everything in there fits you and you feel good in, and you can just throw everything together, which is not the case of my closet right now. So Diane Bowden, she did inspire me to want to do that. So if you guys didn't listen to last week's episode, make sure that you go back and do that. This week we have Christi Lukasiak on, and you guys know her from Dance Moms, but we just have such a blast talking. I know you're going to love this episode. She has a lot of information, and she's just a breath of fresh air. I love my conversation with her, and she just has a passion for helping out people in that getting out of high school, going into college, trying to learn how to adult period of life, which I feel like we do need help in that area. I feel like schools don't really do a good job at setting us up for the real life. Like, how do you file your taxes? How do you prepare for an interview for jobs? Just different things like that. Like real life skills that you're going to need. So, she, before the pandemic, was traveling and speaking, helping people with that. Now a lot of it's online. And like I said, she's just so much fun to talk to. I know last week I mentioned that we're going to be doing some rebranding. So I just wanted to continue to remind you until it comes out, so that you stay subscribed. Make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast, so that when we do rebrand, that you are there for the journey, so that you're not like, oh my gosh, what is this podcast? I'm not subscribed to it. It's my podcast. You are. It's going to be the same awesome content, just a few small changes. And I'm really, really excited for what the future has in store for the podcast, just to continue to bring on awesome guests and to just learn and grow with you guys. I feel like connecting with the guests, I'm always learning something new. And I have some awesome interviews coming up that I can't wait to share with you guys. And yeah, I feel like everything's just expanding. Our lives. I know Vito and I are just learning this parenting thing. I mean, Jovi's not at the age yet where we really have to parent her. We're, meeting her needs and taking care of her and watching her grow, which has been amazing. And it comes with so many questions. Like, there's just things that nobody prepares you for. Like, does your pediatrician tell you that, hey, this is the age that you should start brushing their teeth, and this is how how they should be eating at this age? And it's just like there's no clear-cut answers for things. So I find myself constantly Googling stuff and trying to figure it out, being like, am I doing this right? Because there's really not a clear-cut handbook when it comes to raising a kid. And so we're just figuring it out. I'm figuring it out with you guys. And that's why I love talking to different people who have been there or who are going through it or have different expertise to to offer to the podcast. I also love it when you guys reach out to me and tell me who you want me to bring on, because I always reach out to those people whenever you're like, hey, can you ask this person to come on? I always reach out. Or if you have a specific topic, if you know an expert in that area, send it my way, because I love hearing from you guys what you want to hear on the podcast. So make sure that you do that. If you're listening, make sure that you leave a review and tell us what episode that you've loved so far, or why you love being subscribed to the podcast. All right, I'm going to jump into this interview with Christi because we just have a blast. I know it's going to brighten your day, and I'm excited for you to hear it. All right, everyone, I'm here with Christi I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Lukasiak.
No, you're pretty good. It's Lukasiak. So yeah, you're like almost perfect.
Lukasiak.
Almost. Yeah, really good job.
Okay.
Really right.
I was practicing before the podcast, and then sometimes like right when I'm about to introduce, I like freeze and I'm like, oh crap, I'm going to say it wrong. But I'm so excited to be talking with you. A lot of people know you from Dance Moms, but you've taken on like a whole new role, especially like in the social media world, and you have your Adulting 101 and just sharing a lot of other tips and everything. I was watching your YouTube vlogs earlier before this. So yeah, it's just kind of created a whole different life for you, which is super awesome. And I'm really excited to talk with you today.
Well, thanks. I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for having me. Yes, I mean, obviously Dance Moms is, there's no way I can compete with a show that was on in 115 countries, like that's clearly where people know me from. But thank you for saying that about social media. That's very kind, because, social media kind of started like the big push of social media right at the onset of Dance Moms. So I kind of, had that parallel. So I was able to grow this audience without really knowing why I was growing one. Mm-hmm. And it's only been in the last couple of years that I've kind of figured out what I wanted to do with that. So it's been an evolution for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. We're going to take a quick break from this episode so I can talk to you about Love Every, because it's been an amazing thing for us as parents to have a subscription to, since we do not know what we're doing and we do not know what to buy our daughter. And it's really cool to have the appropriate toys for each stage of her development be delivered. And so I know that she is playing with things that will help develop her brain, and she's playing to learn. And like I said earlier in this episode, like we have no idea what we're doing and what things to get. So having a subscription to Love Every has been amazing. The play kits are designed for play essentials that come straight to your home every 2 to 3 months, and it starts at $36 a month, and you get the right toys at the right time for their development. And Love Every did all of the research. So the kits are filled with playthings and activities that were designed by experts to link brain science and Montessori philosophy in the way that you play. And it's way more than a box of toys. It gives Vito and I a sigh of relief and a support system where we're like, oh my gosh, okay, so we have a packet guide in there that also talks about conversations to have with your kids and things to incorporate in your everyday life, and helps us know that we are on the right track with her. And then, of course, we love the fact that it is science-backed and stage-based fun. And like I said, it gives us that confidence. And what's great about it too is that the toys are aesthetically pleasing and they're not messy. We're not adding a bunch of clutter and chaos to our house. Everything is designed with detail to be engaging so the children can experience the joy of play, and it's definitely less cleanup. And you always know that everything is made with great quality. Love Every intentionally creates every detail to deliver aesthetics and materials that the whole family can appreciate. And their playthings are made with sustainably harvested wood, organic cotton, and baby-safe plastics. They are delivered every 2 to 3 months, starting at $36 a month. And I want to tell you a couple of other testimonials quick. Parents have said it has been such a relief to receive these beautiful age-appropriate toys. They're simple yet so purposeful. My baby boy loves them. Our toddler plays with the items over and over again for months. She's consistently drawn back to them over the other toys in the house, which we can attest to that as well. So right now, activate free content tailored to your child's age and get a peek inside the play kits at Love Every's website. Visit loveevery.com/mamas to get started. That's LOVEVERY.com/mamas to get started. Now back to the episode. So I'd love to just kind of start with some mom stuff, and then we'll get into everything that you're doing now. And I mean, part of your motherhood was shown on TV. And you know, you don't always get like say in that, but, I would love to just kind of talk about how your motherhood journey has brought you to where you are and shaped what you're doing with your life right now.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that motherhood is such a big part of someone's life, you know, once you journey into that. And I did mother on television, which put me in a completely, I think, unique situation because I'm being judged about my parenting all over the world. But it also does make you kind of reflect on how you are mothering, kind of like from your own perspective, because you're watching it back, which who gets to see that? But I think that I did not grow up with the greatest mom at all. My grandmother basically raised me. And so my goal as a mom was always to be the mom I wish I had. That was kind of like my driving force. And did I always accomplish that? No. I mean, I've screwed up more than anybody, I'm sure. I mean, like, you know, questionable mom choices, putting your daughter on a reality show, I'm sure. But I think that I've been very honest about not being perfect. And for whatever reason, that has really resonated with a lot of younger women, I think I speak to, because they kind of identified with me as a mom that they wish that they had growing up, kind of. And so now, instead of me always speaking to the moms of the world, I feel like I've become the mom of this younger generation almost. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's kind of shaped, you know, where I am personally and career-wise, because I've adopted this almost cyber mom role, which I'm not qualified for in any way, shape, or form, but I'm just going with it, you know? Like, I have a daughter that's the same age, so the things I see her going through, I kind of talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I feel like people respect that when people are honest, because even me, like growing up kind of in a generation where our moms, they didn't have the hard conversations with us. They didn't, like a lot of things I feel like are kind of swept under the rug instead of like being like, hey, like mom gets her feelings hurt sometimes too. Mom's going to lose it sometimes too. I have emotions and I'm a valid human being who experiences these things instead of like having to closet that all in. And now like we're in an area where it's like, oh, okay, like I see that it's okay for me to still express myself as a mom because I am a human being, and it's okay for my kids to see that.
Oh, 1,000,000%. I can remember very distinctly when my oldest, she's 19, she'll be 20 actually next week, which is it's a real sort of moment for both of us. Cause she's like, I'm not going to be a teenager. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have a 20-year-old. Like, it's a weird milestone, but I remember very distinctly when she said to me, I just realized that you're human, you know? And I think a lot of us go through that when you're like, oh my God, my parents aren't just my parents, they're humans and they went through all of that. And it's sort of like, it threw her off kilter for a moment because she's like, wait, you've had a life before us, or you think differently than, you're not just my mom. Right. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And, you know, that's interesting that you say that we're in a different time that we can actually express our emotions, because one thing I do say is I'm very quick to apologize to my children if I know I've done something wrong, which I don't think a lot of generations before us would have done. Yeah. You know, like if I know that I've done something wrong, like I have no problem saying to my girls, like, listen, that was not right. I should not have said that. I'm very sorry. Like that was like, is treating them like that, you know, saying I'm sorry. I can't imagine, because like I said, my grandparents raising, I can't imagine like my grandfather telling me he was sorry, you know, like that just wouldn't have happened. But that man was also like in World War II. So that's a totally different generation.
Right. Yeah. So right before we started recording, you were talking about how you had just recently talked about like your birth stories and everything like that. And it was bringing up a lot for you. I'd love to talk about how maybe that identity shift of becoming a mom, what that was like for you.
You know, I found out I was pregnant with Chloe when I was 23. I had her when I was 24. I had just got married, like just been married. And so it was very hard. Like, I will be very honest. And she gets very upset with me because I said, I cried. Like, I really did. Because once you become a mom, you are always someone's mom. And like, I didn't feel like I had an opportunity to kind of really like develop who I was as a human yet before I gave that part of myself away that I was like somebody else's mom. And so I struggled a lot with that. And then I had my younger daughter when I was in my 30s, and I was already a mom. So it was different. But now it's interesting because I feel like I grew up a lot mothering, but now that I'm fairly young to have children as old as I do, that I'm almost getting a second chance to kind of re-identify myself now. Because it's a really hard thing. And society expects so much of us. And it's almost like, you know, where you're told like, oh, you can do everything. It's supposed to be a positive. I think it was supposed to be like, look, you don't have to make choices anymore. You don't have to stay home. You can do everything. But I think that puts an insane amount of pressure on you, because what if you don't want to do everything? Like, there's days I wake up and I'm lucky I can do one thing, you know? And so I think this whole mindset of you can do everything, right, but not at once. Like, I don't think we should have to do it at once. It's too hard. Plus, like, then you miss out on things, and you're never really giving yourself fully to that one thing at one time. Like, having an 8-month-old, how many days do you really, like, don't struggle with mom guilt? Yeah. I bet not very many, you know, because you're like, oh, I didn't give 100% here. I didn't give 100% there. But that's okay. There's some days that 10% is all you can give, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, I definitely identify like that, because I feel like I'm a good mom, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I could be better.
Yeah, but we all think that.
Right, and that's not good.
Yeah. No, I know, because it's always this case of like glass half full kind of thing. Like, oh, we could do better. I could do better. Well, you know, that's why I have this amazing friend. Oh God, she's a single mom. And she has 2 girls, and she's amazing, because there are days that I will wake up and there'll just be a text from her that's like, you're a great mom. I want somebody to tell you that today. And I'm like, thanks. And like, I do the same back to her just randomly, because I think that we all need to hear that sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And it goes back to like, just because you're a mom, it doesn't mean you don't have, like, you don't experience all of the human emotions, but it's like all of a sudden you don't have permission to anymore. Like, you just have to keep going and keep functioning. And there's days where you are exhausted and you're like, listen, I'm going to clear out the dishwasher, and that is it. Like, this is all that can happen today.
All that can happen.
Right.
Well, I had my COVID vaccination, my second one last week, and I got very, very, very sick on Friday. I have to tell you, I went through an entire like soliloquy in my own brain about how I couldn't lay on that couch. And every time I would sit up, I'm like, I can't do it. And I'm like, oh my God, I have so much stuff to do. Like, I was literally sick, but I was trying to convince myself that I didn't have permission to be sick.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And that's also, again, like why it's awesome having people like you who talk about it and who is the cyber mom, like keeping it real and knowing like, hey, you know, if Christi says that some days she only gives 10%,
I resonate with that, and it's okay. You know, like we've all been there.
Sure. I think I did post a story of me like laying under the cat-like covers, and I was like, yeah, no, there is nothing happening with me today. Sorry if you don't see me on social media. I'm dying.
Right. And that's okay.
For sure.
All right. So I want to share with you guys one of my favorite services that I use, and that is Stitch Fix. Shopping for new clothes can be very stressful. I know I do not like going to a mall or a store. I instantly feel very overwhelmed and I don't know what to get, what's going to fit my body type right. And that's why I love Stitch Fix. You have a personal stylist who picks out things for you. You take a quiz online to kind of show what kind of styles you're into or things that you would wear, and you fill out your size, your style, your budget, and it's just a completely different and fun way to find clothes that you will love to wear. I actually used this during my pregnancy last year for maternity clothes, and I got the cutest dresses that I probably would not have picked out for myself. And then they came and I tried them on and absolutely loved them. And so I'm doing it again this year because I'm back at where I'm like, I do not know what to wear. The weather's getting warmer outside. I need a few new cute outfits to go out in. So naturally, I'm using Stitch Fix. Also, there's no subscription required. You can try it once or you can set up automatic deliveries. You just pay $20 for the styling fee for each box, and it gets credited toward the pieces that you keep. And you can send back whatever you don't want to keep. It's super, super easy. And then you're just charged for the items that you absolutely loved and that you wanted to keep. You can get started today at stitchfix.com/mamas and you'll get 25% off when you keep everything in your fix. That's stitchfix.com/mamas for 25% off when you keep everything in your fix. That's stitchfix.com/mamas. I'd love to know, like, what do you know now that you wish you would have known when you first became a mom?
No matter what you do when your kids are teenagers, it's never going to be good enough.
Okay.
Like, they will always come back and be like, you were awful. Like, no matter what, you're going to be awful. But they will come through it and they will like be a human again at some point. But what do I wish that's kind of a joke. What do I wish I would have known? That, you know what, like, they will be okay. Like, you know, because I think we spend so much time worrying that you're worrying about these almost abstract things, and you're worried about like the teeny tiny details. And honestly, if it doesn't make a difference, like in your kids' lives in 6 days or 6 weeks or 6 months, like cut yourself some slack, you know, like they will be fine even if you don't check every single box. Mm-hmm. So take care of yourself. That's the other thing I feel like I wish I knew, is that it's okay to take care of yourself. Because if you can't do that, then you're never going to show up 100% for them. I did not learn that until much, much later in my motherhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's super important.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that you hear a lot of people say now, like, make sure you take care of yourself. And I feel like when you're in it, it's like, yeah, okay. You know?
Yeah. But even 20 years ago, that was not the norm to hear, you know, that was being selfish, you know, like, kids eat first, you put your children first, you do this first. And I'm like, well, that's not always the case, but I do agree with you too, that it's always getting out of your own head.
Right. Yeah. So we can't have you on without talking a little bit about your experience on Dance Moms.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
Do you ever get sick of talking about it? Or like, do you get sick of being asked about it?
I mean, I think that we all have moments that we get tired or something, but for the most part, no. Like, I try to keep things in perspective. Like, Dance Moms has given me more than I can have ever imagined in my life. So I try to be appreciative of that. And I mean, there's certain questions that I get asked. I'm like, oh God, I could just put this in my bio, you know, like, these are the answers, you know? But no, it's a really unique situation. I think people are just naturally curious about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would just want to know, I guess, looking back, your perspective just of the experience as a whole.
It was really freaking hard. Like, it was really, really hard. Ignorance is bliss, because when we first signed on for the show, it was literally a 6-episode docuseries. Like, that's what we signed on for. So as it kept going and evolving into the show that people know it is today, like, had that been the show we would have signed up for, I don't think any of the 4-5 original moms would have signed up. Like, we'd have been like, no, which was always kind of like the shocking part when these new people would come on after watching and they would be like, we're here. And I'm like, did you not watch? And then they had different expectations. And I'm like, dude, you watch the show, like, you know what this is. Whereas we were already in it and it like evolved around us. And then we're like, this is not what we signed up for. Mm-hmm. Oh God, the other thing looking back, like the amount of time, like the schedule was so brutal. And talk about mom guilt. I had a 1-year-old when the show started. And so I can't tell you how many times I struggled with missing things of her and leaving her at home because this was my job. Or in the summers when we would travel for like 6 weeks at a time, they always hired a nanny for me to bring her, which was amazing. But here's the problem is that nanny let her sleep all day. And so I would film all day and come back to a hotel room and be exhausted with a 2-year-old who was up all night. You know, and so that was cruel. Like that, I was literally like, I remember just feeling like I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was tough. It was really, really tough for sure on a lot of levels.
And I know, like with reality TV too, like a lot of the things that are edited are taken out of context or just not true. So it has to be frustrating, like watching, like at the time, watching some things back and being like, I wasn't even talking about that. Yes. And they like used it for a different scene. And you're like, oh my gosh, like...
100%. I can't tell you how many times they showed me rolling my eyes at things. I'm like, that is not what I rolled my eyes at. I actually rolled my eyes at a producer for asking me to say something insane, you know? And I'm like, I didn't do that. But yeah, and we never saw the episodes before they aired. So it was like, I always said it was the equivalent to jumping out of an airplane and hoping your parachute opened that week, like that you weren't going to get annihilated online, that people weren't going to be like, you are the most awful human on the planet. So it was tough. That was hard.
Yeah. Well, and like you're saying before, though, it has to be hard. Like as moms, we judge ourselves enough so that when people are attacking your choices as a mom or the way you're choosing to parent, especially when it's being portrayed not in your perspective, you know, it's being portrayed in a way that's going to be entertaining and get ratings. So I know that if somebody was like, attacking me and being like, you're a horrible mom and this, I would be like, I don't know what I would do.
Well, the biggest thing everyone would always say is, how dare those moms not take their children out of this environment? Or those moms are fame whores because they want to be here. And I'm like, we're under contract with a major network. Like, we don't just get to leave a dance studio. You know, that was I think for me, the most frustrating part of the judgment was, if you don't like it, just leave. And I was like, it's not that simple. Like, you can't just leave. And so I always say that when someone says, what do you wish people would have known? And that's really it. It's like, no normal person would have put up with 98% of that, but you're in an environment that doesn't make it easy for you just to be like, I'm done and be done. It's very, very difficult to get out of things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine.
Hey listeners, Wondery has a new podcast called The Vaping Fix that I think that you'll love. If you or anyone you know has ever used an e-cigarette, you're going to want to hear this. In 2018, college sophomore Gianluca Barrecchio was studying in his dorm room when suddenly he struggled to breathe. His lungs felt like they were on fire, and as he was rushed to the hospital ER, doctors tried to help him. They demanded that he tell them what drugs that he was using, and in a daze, Gianluca promised he didn't use any drugs, just a Juul. But he didn't realize inside that Juul was an addictive drug. Hosted by Laura Beale and the team behind Dr. Death and Bad Batch, The Vaping Fix is the shocking story of how the e-cigarette company Juul set out to help lifetime smokers quit. But instead, it managed to hook a new generation of young people. You're going to want to hear this. I know so many people that have e-cigarettes, and I am sending this podcast to all of them because what you're going to hear is kind of shocking. So follow the Vaping Fix on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or you can also listen early and ad-free by starting your free trial of Wondery Plus in the Wondery app.
So would you ever do a reality TV show again?
Okay, my answer is going to surprise you, but yes, because let me tell you, I think I have enough TV clout that I could be a producer as well.
Got it.
So I would have a say in what was happening. That would be the only way I could do reality again, is if I had like some sort of, I don't want to say creative control. That's not what I mean, but like a say over some of the situations.
Mm-hmm.
I could never do dance like in that environment. No way. I would never. It's too hard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I would love to talk about Adulting 101.
Yeah.
First of all, that's like such an amazing name. And when I saw it, I'm like, man, adulting is so hard.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And honestly, like half the time I'm looking at things and I'm like, this could go on forever. It could be like momming 101, like empty nesting 101, because it's really just life.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So how did you come up with it?
It was really just listening to my audience, what everyone was saying, you know, because I kept thinking like I talk mostly, my main audience are 18 to 25-year-old women, because those are the girls who grew up the same age as my daughter watching the show. And when I was looking at my statistics, I'm like, you know, who are these people? Who is listening to me? And I was like, oh, it's these kids. And then they kept saying the same thing over and over and over. Like I kept getting asked for advice. I kept getting the same comment like, oh, I wish you were my mom. I wish I had known this. My life would have been easier. And then I guess as Chloe was transitioning from living at home to moving to California, I realized that there was a lot of things that she needed to know. And she kept saying like, oh, I feel clueless. And like Chloe's a smart girl, but I felt badly that she felt so quote unquote clueless, you know, for not knowing something she was never taught. Mm-hmm. And so then it kind of I was sitting there thinking, and I thought, my God, everybody sits in school for billions of hours and we're not learning these things. I have a platform. Why don't I start teaching it? And it sort of just evolved from there. You know, I put together an Instagram where I was like, okay, Adulting 101, and it had all this stuff. And then people were like, okay, great, but how do I learn these things? So then I did a membership program where each month in that membership program, like I teach a master class. And like this month, it's like understanding how to read a credit report, you know, because like that's something important that you're not really learning somewhere. Even like, you know, understanding investing, things like that. And weirdly enough, my very first career, I actually was like, I was a stockbroker, which I laugh at because it was so not my thing, but I took away a lot of that knowledge that I use now. But, so then what was interesting is during quarantine, when everyone was at home, I also was a very prevalent sorority girl back in my day. And a lot of these women are now sorority aged. And so sororities started reaching out, asking me to speak at chapters. And then that became this insane entity in and of itself. So I ended up talking to almost 500 chapters this year with like 30,000 women. And so I'm like sitting here chatting with them. And if I even impacted, you know, 2% of those women, then I feel like I've paid it forward in the world a little bit. Mm-hmm. So then maybe like all the street fights on Dance Moms were worth it, because they wouldn't be listening to me if I was just like a regular mom. They'd be like, oh, great, it's another middle-aged woman, you know, but I have that cred with them because they watch me on TV. So it's all kind of come full circle.
Mm-hmm. And it's probably fun for them too, to like, it's almost like there's this TV character, Christi.
Oh my God, 100%.
And then they're like, oh wait, she actually has like valid, important information to say.
Yeah. And it's funny because like, look, this is what I always want to say to the moms out there. I'm like, listen, I've got your back. They might not listen to you, but they're going to listen to me because I'm not their mom.
Right.
Like we all know that works that way. So I'm out there saying the same thing I would say to my daughter, who doesn't listen to me, but somebody else's daughter will. So that's kind of like the beauty of it. Cause I'm like, listen, you guys, stop posting picture or stop posting when you're drunk. Like, stop doing this. And they're like, okay, you know, but if their mom said it, they're like, whatever, you don't know a thing.
Right. That's so funny.
Yeah.
I find it super interesting because you're talking about like, you know, these people don't have certain life skills. And I mean, I felt that way too, graduating high school. It's like you learn all this stuff in school, which honestly, none of it I'm using today. And
the Pythagorean theorem, never used you once.
No. And I'm like, I didn't have tons of life skills. I feel like the only thing was like, I had a job since I was 16. So like I had a good work ethic and I knew, the importance of working and, you know, I had to make money to pay for things. And so, but other than that, it's like, I knew nothing about what to do with my money or, like they don't teach you like most life skills. And it's like, what are schools doing right now?
Yep. I totally agree. And I was in the same boat, like always worked, always knew I was a hustler. Like I had to take care of myself. Not a hustler, like I'm going to hustle you out of your money, but like I was always working. And I can remember getting my first apartment that was way too expensive for what I was making. And just like being strapped so hard, but thinking that I would be fine because like the numbers should have made sense, but they didn't. And I can remember like having so much anxiety just thinking about paying my rent every month. But if somebody had said to me, like, listen, you only budget, you know, a third of your income to pay for that, I'd have been like, oh, okay, not 85%. Got it. You know, but like, why? That's just like basic stuff that nobody's teaching you. And yeah, there should be, I know there are some schools very far and few between, but there needs to be like a life skills class. Do you know how many people I know that are like, I don't know how to write a check? Not that we write them, but like there is a time in your world that you have to write a check. Yeah. And they're like, I don't know how to do this.
I just wrote one yesterday to our tax lady.
I was gonna say, because there are certain situations that you have to write a check.
Yeah.
You know? So you do need to know that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I feel like I don't even know what they're teaching kids in school these days because I know that they took things out like cursive and things like that. And to me, I'm like, what? That's how I write. I only write in cursive. Like,
me too. Well, I actually asked my sixth grader the other day, I was like, can you read cursive? And she goes, well, at first she's in sixth grade, so everything is a sigh. And she's like, yes. And she's like, they taught us a unit in third grade. And she said, and you used to write all of my lunch notes in cursive because I always put a note in their lunch every day. And I was like, oh, see, like my lunch notes actually taught them how to read cursive.
Right.
Oh, sorry, my pets.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, but no, they don't. And I mean, look, new math, forget it. I have zero knowledge. New math, I'm like, just go away. I borrow. I don't know what that means. I'm like, you'll always have your phone with you. There's a calculator on it. You're fine.
Right. And for some reason, it makes me think of the movie Mean Girls when she's like, I love math because it's the same in every language. And I'm like, but now they're changing it. Like,
yeah. Yeah, you're like, well, it might be the same in every language, but it's totally different for generations because your mom still borrows. And like, I know that's not something you speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I was a huge math person. So to me, like handwritten long division is still a thing. Like,
yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, God. Well, and my sixth grader that is her forte is math. And I'm just like, that is not the language I speak. And she kills me with stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know what any of that is. So you're just going to have to.
Right.
Like,
don't
talk
ask
to your
me.
dad.
Yeah.
Right.
What was it like having your girls with a big age gap between them?
You know, it was, I just talked about that on my podcast today. So it was a little bit hard because, well, first of all, for me, starting over and like, it's almost like you're parenting two different families, you know, because you're going through like the teen stuff when, you know, you have your first teenager and your little one's still little. And the problem that I see the most is that my 19-year-old will totally regress to acting like the 11-year-old when they argue. And because, you know, like, it's the weirdest thing. Now, they could be like that even if they both were 19. I don't know. but it's like having two different families. Like Chloe was an only child for 8 years. Then I had the two of them together for 10. And now Clara is kind of an only child at home for 8 years. And I think it's harder on Clara because she's older, like, you know, during this alone time, and she really misses her sister. So it's hard. And it's way harder the second time around because I'm older and I'm like, I'm tired. I'm like, oh, Clara.
Right. It's like, oh, yeah, I don't have time to deal with this.
I know. I'm like, oh, I don't. But then again, she probably gets a better version of me because I'm not so like in it, you know? Yeah. I'm like, okay, you're fine. You're totally fine.
And your feelings probably aren't as hurt because you just know that like she's a hormonal girl trying to figure things out and you're not like taking everything personally or against you.
100%. Yesterday she came downstairs and I was like, oh my gosh, you look so cute. And she literally looked at me with death eyes. And I was like, what did I do? Because there's this whole, I actually joke around about it on my social media. I call it the 6th grade rules because there's this whole set of unspoken rules that I violate daily. And she was like, do not comment on my outfit. And I was like, you look cute. And she goes, but if you say it's cute, it makes me want to change. And I was like, oh, wow. Like you are so bitchy.
Yeah.
But I know that she's just like you said, a hormonal girl. Like it's not, she's a bad kid. She's just like, she doesn't know if she's coming or going.
Right. And it actually has nothing to do with you at all.
No. And she's even said, she's like, I'm sorry I mean to you. And she was just like, she's like, I know you'll love me. I'm like, yeah, if you're lucky.
So has your oldest daughter been away in California, like during the whole pandemic and everything?
She left for college. So she moved out there in September of 2019. Started college in January. She took a semester off. And then the pandemic hit in March. She came home and lived here from March until August. Okay. And then went back in August. But honestly, LA's been so like shut down that even some school, well, there's a million schools across the country that everyone is like on campus. They haven't been on campus since last March. So she's literally been virtual. So she was home for a while, but she's been like virtually or cyber schooling, however you want to call it, since August. And I'm like, hey, you could be home doing that. And she's like, yeah, no. Because like they're still all hanging out and doing whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's fun. But
it was really nice to have her home for those, you know, March, April, May, June, July, August, like 5-6 months. It was like I had this bonus time with her. It was really nice. And I kind of was one of the weird people who liked like all of the lockdown stuff because it forced my family to be together and hang out. And I like just all, like, I love being with my family. It's my, like, I would be with my kids and my husband. Like, we really enjoy being together. And so, like, every day at 4, we'd go on a big walk with our dogs. And, like, we hiked every weekend. And I enjoyed that time.
Yeah. I did, too. Except for once I had my daughter, because I had her in September, then it was just, like, weird because it's that new mom. And I felt like I was just stuck at home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to get out of the house. And then like winter hit and I live outside Chicago and I just felt like so isolated.
Oh my gosh. You probably were going through depression. Honestly.
It was tough. And normally, so my husband works construction and he's usually off in the winters. And this year they picked up like a big commercial job so that they didn't take any breaks. They worked through the winter. And so I was like really looking forward to having him home. Like I don't get sick of him. Like every winter I'm like, I love just like hanging out with him all day, every day.
Yeah.
And this winter he wasn't home. So it was definitely really hard. But now it's like warming up and, you know, I'm getting back in the world. And, but I did enjoy, like, I felt like the lockdown was like a good excuse though, too. Like when I didn't want people around or I didn't want to see people, it's like, I don't want a bunch of people coming over. I look like crap. I don't want to clean up the house. I'm not like whatever, you know, it's like, hey, we're not taking any visitors right now.
Yeah, no, sorry. The baby she can't be exposed. That's too dangerous.
Right. But I'm like, I actually just don't want to see anyone.
Wow, it was kind of nice. It really was.
Right. It was a combo, but I probably did need some human interaction.
Yeah, because I was just going to say you had a lot of factors like contributing to a lot of tough contributing factors. Like new mom is a whole thing.
Right.
Plus, like the winter is very hard. Like just being inside because I'm in Pittsburgh, same thing. You know, like those gray days, like not interacting with humans. Like, yeah, there's a lot happening there. Well, I'm glad to see that you're like smiling and on the other side of it.
Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm so excited that you took the time to come on the podcast. I'd love for you to tell everyone like what's next for you, where they can follow you, what to look out for, and where they can listen to your podcast at.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, across all social media, I'm at Christi Lukasiak, which is Christi with an I, Chrissti. You can obviously follow, I should spell my last name, Lukasiak. Obviously I have Adulting 101 on Instagram. I have some really fun, like I'm doing a virtual retreat in September for like recent college grads to connect with each other. Cause I think that's a hard thing for people. Is that connection after you graduate, finding your new tribe, so to speak. So I'm doing that in September. I mean, I just feel like working with sororities is going to continue. I feel like there's a lot that can happen and this program can evolve to or into. So I'm excited about the possibilities. And, my podcast is called Christi's Couch because I feel like I'm kind of like a therapist hanging out on my couch, pulling out this advice, totally unqualified as a therapist, but you know, just giving my best mom advice. But we obviously talk about fun topics as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm just going to keep doing my thing every day and, you know, cyber momming. And it's funny. I just got about 18 texts from my daughter while we were on this call. So I'm wondering what's going down in LA.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I'll leave everything in the show notes to where people can connect with you.
Thank you.
And definitely check out her Adulting 101, guys. It's probably things that you won't even learn in college as well. I was like scrolling through it and I'm like, I need to take some of these and I'm like in my mid 30s.
There's valuable information on there that we forget about. Like this week I have to do a video about, it's on my to-do list, like how to sew a button back on. Like seems so silly, but like, look, then it's right there and then you can use it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much for your time and your energy and for coming on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. Good luck with everything.
Thank you. She is funny and fun to talk to. Oh my gosh. Like I said, I just had such a blast talking with her. We chatted for a little bit before and after, and actually, thankfully, we had finished the interview. My power went out when she and I were chatting afterwards. So I was like, oh my gosh, good thing the podcast was done recording. How wild. But yeah, she's funny and you guys should go follow her. Make sure that you check out her podcast and her adulting program. Like she actually has like really good information on there. Things that I'm still in my mid 30s. I'm like, wait, I should probably learn how to do this because I don't know. I still feel like I'm a kid at heart. I always say that. I'm like, how do I have a kid? I'm just a kid. I really do feel that way. Our vessels are just, you know, aging, but our insides, our hearts don't really, and minds, I guess. We learn and grow, but we still stay, spirited and young at heart. So next week, we have the Momfully You on, Chastity from Momfully You. And May is traditionally Maternal Mental Health Month. And every year we do an episode on it. And I haven't done one yet this year. And Chastity is a mom therapist coming on, and we talk all about identity because that is something that shifts when you become a parent. We have our identities in a lot of different things, whether it's in our career and our family and our hobbies and our passions. And when you have kids, everything just kind of shifts. And sometimes then that becomes your identity. And it's important to hang on to those things that make you come alive. Not that your kids don't, but I know for me, I've really, really struggled figuring out how to
get my passions back, I guess. And I'll talk more about it on the episode next week. But definitely stay tuned for that. It's a great conversation. Guys, next week is the end of May. Holy crap. Oh, it's Memorial Day weekend this next weekend. Everyone have fun, be safe. And I cannot believe it is almost summer. We had our first day of 80 degrees here in Chicago. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I drove with the windows down. And whenever I drive with the windows down, I have to turn the music up. Like they did. I mean, I guess it makes sense. The wind's coming in the windows. You can't hear as well. But you just have to blast some good tunes. And it just felt so good to let that sunshine in and take Jovi in the backyard, and she was eating some grass, and it was great. I'm super excited. And again, like what I was saying you don't have a manual for how to do these things right with kids. So even now I'm like, okay, so I've never had a kid in summer before. How much sunscreen do I apply, and hats and shade, and how long can she be outside, and how do I figure all of this out? Like, when do I know if she's too hot or getting too much sun, and just trying to navigate this whole new season, literally the season of the year and life with a baby. So if you guys have any tips on that, please send them my way. All right. I love you guys. I hope that you have a great week. Make sure that you check out the Miraculous Mamas Instagram and Facebook group, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
If you want to be the most interesting person at the cocktail party, well, hop on over and listen to the Brain Candy podcast.
Our award-winning content will have you laughing while you're learning.
We read all the best articles, books, and studies, and keep up with new TV shows, documentaries, and pop culture. And then we cram it all into 2 shows a week.
Conspiracy theories, cannibal rabbits, unsolved mysteries, the history of the Walkman. There's something for everyone.
The Brain Candy podcast. Find our link in the show notes.
Or simply search for the Brain Candy podcast on your podcast app.